everyone, and welcome to your recorded lecture on our last topic for UTS, which is the future self. Learning outcomes. By the end of this topic, I'm hoping you'll be able to introduce the future-oriented perspectives of the self. Second, to observe how the premises of the possible selves theory are applied in your daily lives. And lastly, for you to be able to come up with proximal and distal long-term goals. Now, you might be wondering how the future is related to understanding who we are as individuals. The future is a time that nobody has ever been to. We don't know what to expect, and we're not really sure what's going to happen in the future. So, how does this help us understand ourselves better? It helps us understand who we are as individuals because the way that we shape our future, the kind of goals that we have set for ourselves to achieve, it is a reflection of our present behaviors and who we are as of the present moment. So, even if the future is uncertain, even if the future is something that we have no clear idea on what it's going to look like, as long as we have already made plans on what we want our future to become, it's already a reflection of our identity. It's a reflection of what we want to become. It's a reflection of the kind of success that we are trying to achieve. Now, there are two types of theories that we will be talking about for this topic. First, we have the time perspectives theory by Philip Zimbardo. Now, the time perspective theory tells us that people are likely to sort, categorize, and analyze their human experiences into past, present, and future time frames, influenced by personal, social, and institutional factors. Basically, what this theory tells us is the way that we shape our future, it's very much dependent on where we contextualize ourselves. Do we focus on our past self so that we don't make the same mistakes for the future? Do we focus on our present selves and evaluate what have we been doing and is it aligned with the future that we want? Or do we also contextualize ourselves in the future perspective where we now envision achieving the success that we wanted, getting the profession that we also want to get, for example? Depending on what kind of context you put yourself in, that's how you shape your future. According to this theory, there are 5 time perspectives an individual can be in. First, we have present hedonistic. Individuals tend to be risk takers, driven by sensory, concrete factors, and driven by pleasurable sensations. They often disregard negative consequences of their actions since they are focused on the process rather than the outcome and are often emotional and volatile. Basically, people who are in present hedonistic, they don't really think about the consequences of their actions, whether it's going to lead them to success or not, or whether it's going to stray them away from the kind of achievement that they want to pursue, because they focus on doing things because it feels good for them, or because they prioritize pleasure more compared to delayed gratification. So examples of behaviors in present hedonistic could be you as a student, you know that you have to study for back-to-back exams, but at the same time, you don't really feel like studying. So you go out with your friends, or you doom scroll on your social media platforms, you watch Netflix, or you play games. You know it's important for you to study because you are struggling or the subjects are hard, but at the same time, you prioritize pleasure first. So you'd much rather do other things compared to studying. That's present hedonistic. Also, people who are in present hedonistic tend to engage a lot in risky behaviors because they don't really think about the future yet. They don't really think about the consequences of whether this is going to pull them back or if this is going to make them step backwards towards what they want to achieve, because what they prioritize most is having fun. Now, the next perspectives are present fatalistic and past positive. Those who are in present fatalistic, these are individuals who feel that their lives are out of control and that no matter what they do, things will not turn out as what they planned them to be. Now, people in present fatalistic, they also tend to engage in risky behaviors, same to those who are in present hedonistic, but the main reason isn't because they prioritize pleasure or they want to have fun before prioritizing what's important. People in present fatalistic engage in risky behaviors because they believe there's nothing left to lose anymore. Usually, people who are in present fatalistic have accumulated past experiences or failed past experiences, and they already have this mindset that you're never going to succeed in anything you put your mind into. Maybe you're not enough, maybe you're not smart enough, maybe you don't have enough resources. So whatever you want to achieve, you will never get that. So they kind of have this developed mindset already that they no longer want to try. There's nothing wrong if they engage in risky behaviors anymore because there's nothing left to lose. There is no future waiting for them, so it's okay for them to engage in these behaviors. So basically, people who are in present fatalistic, they have acquired learned helplessness. This is a concept in psychology where learned helplessness basically is a person already having this defeatist mindset that, yeah, whatever I want to do, I won't be able to succeed because past experiences have already proven to me that I always fail. I never get what I want. I never succeed. So why should I bother trying when every time I do, I always fail? So that's the mindset of people in present fatalistic. And then you have past positive individuals who are likely to remain in their comfort zone and their actions are influenced by what has worked in the past. Now, past positive generally isn't a bad perspective as long as you use the past as a motivation to continue what you're currently doing in the present time because your future self will be thanking you for that later on. When you try to reminisce on the good moments or you become nostalgic, it's okay because that can be your motivating factor for you to recreate those memories so that later in the future you also have things to look back to. But if you stay too much within your comfort zone, if you don't try to allow yourselves to be open to new opportunities because you are stuck with your comfort zone, then that's where past positive becomes a dangerous perspective. You don't allow yourselves to be open to new experiences because you would much rather settle with what's more comfortable. For example, instead of making new friends in college, you really stick to your senior high friends because you're more comfortable with them. Later on in the future, once you graduate from college, you won't be able to have good memories to look back into because you never made substantial friendships during college because you were so stuck with your senior high barkada, for example. So that's past positive. If we use past positive as a motivational factor for us to create new memories so that we can look back on that later on in the future, then the perspective is not inherently bad. But if we use past positive just to stay within our comfort zones and we do not allow ourselves new experiences and new opportunities for us to grow as individuals, that's when this perspective can become dangerous. The last two perspectives are past negative and future oriented. In the past negative perspective, like past positive, they are always anchored on the past, but they tend to lean on the negative side. They tend to focus on the wrong decisions they have made in the past and constantly regret them. So people who are in past negative, they also tend to reminisce what happened in the past, but usually it's about the mistakes that they've made or the regrets or the what if situations. So people who are in past negative, they aren't able to move forward towards the present time and build a more better picture for the future because they ruminate over their mistakes. They ruminate over their decisions and what if they made the other decision, for example. And then lastly, we have future oriented, which is the ideal perspective that every individual should be in. So future oriented, these are individuals who base their present choices and actions on long-term consequences. They are likely to manifest delay of gratification and endure negative situations if they are likely to see the benefits of doing such. So future-oriented is largely opposite from present hedonistic. They don't immediately engage in temptations or whatever makes them feel pleasure. They engage in whatever is closest to their goal, or their behaviors are a reflection of them trying to chase that achievement that they want to have for themselves. So if we use the same example from present hedonistic, where you know you have to study, but it's more tempting to watch Netflix, it's more tempting to do something else. People who are in future oriented, they will delay that. They will delay watching Netflix, they will delay doom scrolling on TikTok because they will study first. They will try to treat it as a reward system that, okay, I will be watching Netflix once I'm done with my exams as a reward for myself, for example. So that's what people in future oriented tend to do. Now, according to Zimbardo, the proponent of this theory, any person could be in any of the perspectives when they try to shape their future. You could be in more than one perspective, you can be in all perspectives when you try to evaluate how you currently are in shaping your future. An example for this could be maybe you are in past positive and you are also future oriented. Past positive in a sense that you are comfortable with the kind of study habits that you've already built during high school, so you try to use that right now because that's what has worked for you in the past. So since you already have a basis for your study habits, that's your past positive. You're able to recall that, okay, this is what I've did during high school, this is what I'm currently doing now, and it has always been effective, so I will be using this every time I study. And then future oriented could be, okay, I'm now using my study habits so that I can become closer to the goal that I want to achieve, to become a licensed professional or licensed practitioner in the medical field, for example. So that's an example where two perspectives are possible, or it's possible for an individual to be in multiple perspectives according to this theory. Or another example could be you are present hedonistic and future oriented. There may be times that you want to indulge in your temptations more, but there are also times that you know when to stop yourselves, or you know when to discipline yourselves because you have to focus on your studies. So it's very common that most students are both in present hedonistic and in future oriented. Or you could also be in past negative and future oriented. You may have a moment in your life where you ruminate over your mistakes, especially your scores. Where did you go wrong? Was it because you didn't study enough? Was it because you weren't using the right materials? Was it because you were using different study habits when you tried to study for that exam? So you tend to ruminate over that for a certain period of time, and then eventually you become future oriented. What are you now supposed to do now that you've learned from your mistakes? So again, in the time perspectives theory, anybody could be in any perspective and they could be in multiple perspectives. Now, the next theory is the possible selves theory, which refers to the different representations of the self derived from the past and the future. The possible selves theory has 6 philosophical premises. Now, the first premise is that the possible selves is both a motivational resource and behavioral blueprint of the self. How one envisions himself or herself to be fuels his or her drive to achieve his or her plans for the future and enables him or her to set specific short-term and long-term goals. Basically, what the first premise of this theory is telling us is when we already have a vision of who we want to become in the future or what we want to achieve in the future, it serves as our motivation to behave correctly or to behave according to the future that we want to achieve. So for example, you want to become a licensed medical practitioner. So because that's the future that you have aspired for yourself, your current behavior now is that you are motivated to achieve that kind of profession. So your current behavior right now is you're enrolled in the program that will lead you to getting that kind of profession later on. So that's the first premise. Whatever future we have decided to shape for ourselves, it's going to serve as our motivation to behave according to the future that we want to get later on. Second premise, not all future selves are positive. Future selves revolve around 3 ideas. First is what one might become, or our auto selves. Second is what one would like to become, our ideal or hoped for selves. And third is what one is afraid to become, or our feared selves. Now, in the auto selves, or what one might become, this isn't who we really want to become in the future, but we are open to the possibility that it might happen. So for example, the future that you want is you want to become a medical practitioner, or you want to become a professional in the medical field. But you're also open to just becoming a trophy wife or a trophy husband, for example, a content creator, an influencer. You're open to those ideas, but it's not primarily what you want. So that is your auto selves. Second is your ideal or hoped for self. So this is now your intention or your ambition. Who do you want to become, or what is the kind of profession that you want or that you have envisioned for yourself? Now, third is your feared self, or what one is afraid to become. Because we also understand that if we are trying to chase a certain future, or if we are trying to chase certain goals, there are aspects of us that we have to sacrifice. It could be our time with our family, our time with our friends, our time with our significant others, and ultimately, we will become somebody we don't really like. We will become somebody who's not going out to family functions anymore. We become somebody who no longer is in contact with friends because you've spent much of your time chasing that kind of goal. And we fear that we become that kind of person. And that is pretty normal. However, if you fear that too much to the point that you are willing to throw away the future that you wanted to achieve because you don't want to turn into that person, then the course of your life would drastically change because you fear too much that you will become the person you don't like. And so that's why when we build a future, it's important there is a healthy balance between your ideal and feared self. Because if there is a healthy balance between these two, it means that one, you have a clear sense of who you want to become or what you want to achieve because you have the ideal or hoped for selves, but at the same time, there is a healthy balance between your feared self because you are self-aware that yes, there is an aspect of me that might change because I'm trying to achieve a goal, but that doesn't mean I should fear that change. It just means I have to be self-aware. I also know when to be accountable and how to apologize to my family, apologize to my friends, reconnect when I can, but that doesn't stop me from achieving my goal. Because if there's too much feared self, then of course we would be willing to throw away our future because we don't want to become the person we don't want to be. However, if there is also too much ideal self, then we might not be self aware enough that we are already breaking off connections with people that are supporting us. So that's why to build a more stable future, there should be a healthy balance between your ideal and feared self. For the third and fourth premises, one versus future self is intertwined with his or her past and present selves. Present situations enable one to think clearly of his or her options and the decisions he or she needs to take, which would bring him or her closer to his or her future goals. What the third premise is telling us is if we already have envisioned a future that we want to become, usually our present situation is following suit with the future that we want. So the third premise is basically just the same as the first premise. Our current behaviors right now are a reflection of the future that we are trying to aspire or we are trying to achieve. Now, fourth premise, future selves are a product of social interactions. How one's future is foreseen is a product of social context. Family, peers and colleagues, schools and other institutions, the society, and the digital world. The way that you shape your future could be dependent on a lot of factors, like maybe your family is telling you to proceed to this path because maybe you come from a line of medical professionals with your relatives. Maybe you were influenced by your friends that, oh, you wanted to take up this program? Okay, I will take up this program too. You also might have been influenced by what's currently happening on TikTok. Students who are doing a day in my life videos, maybe that also inspired you to take up that path, or you know someone who graduated from that program that you're currently in and they are successful in their profession. So there are different environmental factors that also shape how you envision your future. For the last two premises, fifth premise, this premise lies in life transitions that have an enabling influence on one's future selves. When there are changes in one's present life circumstances, like entering a new grade level, transferring to a new school, shifting to a new course, experiencing changes in family situations, there will also be changes to how future life perspectives are viewed. If we encounter situations that are significant enough to alter the course of our path towards leading that future, eventually our future will change as well. An example for the fifth premise could be there is a dream school that you've always wanted to go to, and so you built your future around that. You built your future around the fact that you will be graduating from that university with that certain degree, and it will allow you opportunities to work in this certain field, in this certain hospital, or in this certain country. But maybe that dream school of yours is too expensive. Maybe the dream school is too inconvenient for you. Maybe your family doesn't allow you to go outside of your hometown to pursue your degree or to pursue your program in that specific area. That could also change or alter how you shape your future. So you might settle with, okay, I'm just going to study here in CDU, for example. I'm just going to settle into enrolling in this program. I will reshift my future that I will be a licensed medical technologist, for example, or a licensed physical therapist, a licensed nutritionist and dietitian, for example. I'm going to shift my entire future because of situations that have affected me. Now, the sixth and last premise is based on the concepts of proximal and distal goals. People are more motivated to work on goals that are more immediate than those which are not. Thus, some students lay down simple steps and concrete plans in ensuring their goals are achieved. Most of the problem that people have when they set goals is when they already have a vision of who they want to become, that's the only thing that they focus on. So for example, if you want to become a doctor, usually it will take you around 7 to 8 years to become a doctor. That's including your pre-med. And if the vision that you are trying to focus right now is to become a doctor, and that's 8 years later in the making, it's going to feel too far. It's going to feel a little impossible because it's going to take you a few more years to achieve that title. That's because you are focusing on your distal goal. It's a goal that's really far off from time. It's a goal that will eventually come to you, but it will take a lot of time. And because it's so far away, you will feel discouraged in the middle of trying to achieve that goal. And so that's why it's so important that aside from focusing on the distal goals, you have to also prioritize your proximal goals. Your proximal goals are the goals that are easier for you to achieve because it's less time consuming, they are smaller, and the more that you accumulate these proximal goals, it will actually lead you closer towards your distal goal. So in order for you to not feel discouraged that it's going to take you much longer time to become a doctor, focus on your proximal goals first. Your proximal goals are still aligned with the path of you becoming doctors, for example, but it will feel like it's not taking you too much time because you are focusing on the current goals that you have. So an example for proximal goal would be making sure that you finish this semester, because at least when you're finished with your first year or your first semester, you now have to conquer the second semester, and then next year you will also encounter the first semester of the next academic year. That's you setting proximal goals because you're taking it slowly. You're taking or achieving these goals that are less time consuming compared to becoming a doctor. And later on, when you come to realization that wait, my proximal goals when accumulated is making me closer to becoming a doctor. I'm actually now on my fourth year. I'm about to graduate from my pre-med. Next month or after 3 months, I will be taking the NMAT, and then I'm going to med school. So your proximal goals will serve as a distraction for you to not get discouraged at how far your distal goal is. Your proximal goals will keep you productive to ensure that you are also moving towards your distal goal without you focusing too much about it. Now that is the end for our discussion on the future self. There are no activities for the future self, but you will be having a quiz for this. So again, all quizzes are due until December 7. And also please take note that all your exercises are due on December 14, as well as your scrapbook that is due on December 19. So if there are any clarifications with your exercises, the recorded lectures, the quizzes, please feel free to reach out to me or message me, and I will be addressing your concerns. Thank you for this wonderful semester, and I wish you luck in your future endeavors. Goodbye.